Awesome. Well, welcome everyone to Climate Reality Project's New York City's chapter meeting, Electrifying Your Resolutions. We're expecting a lot of guests tonight. So while we're waiting for the others to join, I'm going to make a few announcements. And the first of which is that tonight's meeting is produced by the Climate Reality Project New York City team, and it's also the first New York State Climate Reality Project Coalition meeting. So I want to welcome all of our colleagues from the Western New York, Finger Lakes, Capital Region, Hudson Valley, Westchester, and Long Island chapters, as well as our native New York City team. So first, I'm going to start with a few announcements on the New York City chapter. I wanted to just highlight that we've relaunched our website, and a huge thanks to Cassandra Rodriguez, our communications director, for all the awesome work that she put into the relaunch. It has loads of useful information, a calendar of events, recordings of all of our past events, and it will have this recording going forward. And so I encourage everyone to please check it out. And at this time, Renee, if you could just drop the links for this page into the chat, that would be super. The second announcement is that everyone is welcome to to join our chapter. There are no requirements. However, if you'd like to become a Climate Reality Project leader, you can go on the free online training. That's coming up in April. And the training is a great way to learn more about the climate science and solutions. This session will also be focused on implementing the IRA, which we're going to talk about later tonight. Al Gore will be there as always, and you can find the links to both join the chapter and to join the training in the chat. And a reminder for the current New York City chapter members, if you could please take the engagement survey, if you haven't already, that would be greatly appreciated. We want to get better. And lastly, please join our next chapter meeting dedicated to the youth voices on March 28th. Members will be automatically invited. So, as I mentioned earlier, this is the first New York State Coalition joint chapter meeting. So we have a few more announcements from the coalition. The state coalition actually has 5 working groups working on different topics. You can see them there. Members from all of the chapters are welcome and encouraged to join them. You can see the details on our website in the Take Action New York State Coalition page. Renee, I think if you could drop those links for this page into the chat, that would be super as well. For those of you who are using the Climate Action Now app, it's a great app. Please scan this QR code that's up on the screen with your smartphone directly from the screen. And then you can take those actions after the meeting tonight. It's to encourage our legislators to get involved in implementing the IRA. The third announcement is that the coalition will be holding its monthly Environmental Justice Action Party on March 15th. And this time is dedicated to support the frontline fighters of the ravages caused by the petrochemical industry in Cancer Alley. And then lastly, the coalition will also be holding a legislative forum for Climate Reality members on March 12th, where they'll talk about how New York government works, review legislation, and opportunities to get involved. So that's the last of the announcements. If you have any questions specifically about those announcements, please drop them in the chat. There's a lot of links there that'll help you get the information you need. But if you have other questions, please drop them in the chat, and we'll try to answer those, real time. Okay, that's it for the announcements. Let's move on to tonight's meeting, which is Electrify Your Resolutions. With the passage of the landmark climate bill called the Inflation Reduction Act, the federal policy framework is now broadly in place to enable many individuals to reduce their carbon emissions. The IRA provides generous rebates and tax credits to electrify your home and your transport, and even to clean your own grid through rooftop solar and battery storage. New York also provides generous rebates and tax credits for electrification, which layer on top of the federal incentives and make the transition to a carbon-free future affordable for more and more households. So we've been waiting for this day. We now have the policy environment, broadly speaking, in New York that allows us to start making personal progress in fighting the climate crisis. The problem that many of us face, myself included, is understanding how all of these incentives work, and then navigating our personal circumstances to come up with a plan that makes sense based on our financial, living, and stage of life considerations. So that's the objective of today's session. It's to lay out the facts on the available incentives and provide a framework for creating your own personal electrification plan. So this meeting is for you and intended to answer your questions. So please get your questions ready. because we have two great speakers tonight who will provoke a lot of thoughts and action, I hope. And our aspiration is that everyone on the call tonight can pledge to take one action this year to electrify our lives. This page shows the many ways that are available, and I think everyone will be able to find at least one action that they can take. It's split between actions to prepare and electrify our homes, to electrify our transport, and to clean our electricity supply. You can find a link to this in the chat. Hopefully Renee's put that in just now. And we recommend that you open it up and print it out. And that'll be the piece of paper you can print out this year so that you can make your pledge tonight. We expect a lot of questions because this is a complicated topic and it's so specific to everyone's individual circumstances. So please put them in the chat, and our co-chair, Faith Cummings, and our advocacy co-director, Deepa Prasad, will be collecting them and running a Q&A after the presentation. So we would like to start with a heartfelt thanks to Rewiring America and New Yorkers for Clean Power for partnering with us to produce and promote this event. These two organizations are uniquely positioned to speak on this issue. Rewiring America has literally written the book on why electrifying everything is critical to averting the worst impacts of the climate crisis. And New Yorkers for Clean Power is a leading, if not the leading, statewide organization working to rapidly shift us to a clean energy economy. So let me start with introducing you to Michael Hernandez, who is the New York Policy Director for Rewiring America. And there he leads the efforts to influence state policy initiatives to address the climate crisis. And before joining Rewiring America, Michael worked at the New York State Assembly as a lead negotiator for New York's landmark CLCPA. He also was involved in enacting congestion pricing in Manhattan and the creation of the Gateway Commission. Michael was also an advocate for NYPIRG and has received numerous awards for his work. Thank you for joining us today, Michael. And that's over to you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Paul. Really happy to be here tonight. I'll start by putting the Rewiring America IRA guide in the chat so people can access that. And then let me share my screen. Give me one moment. Rewiring America was founded in 2020 with one simple idea: electrify everything. Its founders included a consultant to the Department of Energy who mapped out our entire energy ecosystem. On the supply side, he mapped out coal plants, nuclear, hydropower, solar, wind, etc. And then he mapped out all the machines that we use on the demand side of the equation. Rewiring America focuses on us, the end users of a lot of energy, because we are crystal clear on the win-win-win. Lower energy costs from the gas pump to your utility bills, healthier homes producing fewer asthma-causing emissions, and a reduced impact on the climate, because we can actually zero out the emissions we generate with the machines in our daily lives. 87% of US emissions come from energy use. The rest of our climate impacts are from soil management practices, livestock farming, and the use of refrigerants. This includes the cars we drive, how we heat our homes and water, how we cook our food, how we dry our clothes, and where our electricity comes from. 42% of our energy-related emissions come from decisions that we make around the kitchen table nationally. In New York, buildings are our largest source of emissions, responsible for 32% of emissions across the state. When your gas furnace breaks, do we repair it and limp along? Do we replace it with a new gas furnace and lock in carbon pollution for another 20 years? Or do we take the opportunity to install a cheaper to operate and better for the planet heat pump? 70% of Americans are concerned about climate change, but haven't had a place to go to find out what they can do. This should be a source of optimism. We as individual Americans can make a bigger difference than many of us thought. We don't need to invent new technology to make the change. We just need to plan for and motivate the change. We already know how to produce clean electricity, and because of government investments, just like we made in fossil fuels, it's increasingly become the cheapest electricity source. You may be able to purchase wind, solar, or hydropower, or put your own solar panels, or tap into geothermal energy. But that's the supply side. On the demand side, this is the part that most of us don't really think about, other than with cars. But to fully decarbonize our homes, we must replace or install approximately 1 billion machines across 121 million households by 2050, including 100 million space heating machines. So great news is that the Inflation Reduction Act will jumpstart this movement. The law provides rebates, tax credits, grants, and low-cost financing for electric appliances, while at the same time offering powerful incentives on the supply side for renewable sources. We have about $858 billion in electric potential to leverage if we make the most of what's in the Inflation Reduction Act. The average American household will receive $10,600 in IRA benefits to fully electrify. This money is available to homeowners and renters alike, but only if we make it so. 27% of households have heard of electrification. 50% of households have heard of the IRA. We need to pick up the pace of our progress. So taking a step back, what does it mean to electrify? To electrify everything, you'll need to replace any machine that currently burns fossil fuels with new, efficient electric ones. It might also mean installing some new machines like solar panels or a home storage battery. This doesn't have to happen all at once. In fact, it's usually more efficient to replace appliances as they age out. Through a variety of electrification incentives, the IRA empowers American households to save thousands of dollars on upfront costs that come with electrification. That's why Rewiring America launched the IRA Savings Calculator last year to show everyday Americans how they can use the Inflation Reduction Act to go electric. Just put in your income, household size, and so forth, and you'll get a personalized info on how much free money you can get for your electrification journey. When it comes to understanding the IRA, there are a few things you'll need to keep in mind. First, some federal incentives, such as the tax credits, are available right now, and others, like the rebates, are still being finalized and will roll out by the end of this year and into the next. You can follow the timing updates on our website. Second, your IRA electric bank account is a mixture of upfront discounts in the forms of rebates right when you buy your electric appliances and tax credits that you can claim later and low-cost financing. Your income determines the particular makeup of your bank account. Lastly, use our calculator to get an overview of the money available to you and start thinking about your plan. This is key. The key is this is key because sometimes you'll need to do a bit of preparatory work to start electrifying. And you'll need to find contractors who know how to help you install your electric goods. The top lines, the IRA consumer-facing incentives will help you to make the switch to electric appliances, purchase electric vehicles, and install rooftop solar. Also, while it might not be consumer-facing, it's important to note that the IRA includes significant funding for rental and multifamily housing to go electric. When it comes to consumer-facing financial incentives from the IRA, they really fall under one of two categories. They're either tax credits or rebates. First, they're the electrical rebates. These unlock electrification for the households that need it most. They are point of sale rebates up to $14,000 for low to moderate income households who install new efficient electric appliances, which include heat pumps, cooktops, and weatherization. 100% of the cost will be covered for low income households, 50% of the cost for moderate income households. These rebates are going to be administered by our state energy offices. So for New York, that's NYSERDA. For the electrification rebates, heat pumps will need to be Energy Star certified, and you can find a list of standards that a heat pump will need to meet to qualify on our website. Then there are the efficiency rebates, which are for energy efficiency improvements made to existing homes. These are for low to moderate income households and can receive up to $8,000, covering 80% of the project costs. All other households can receive up to $4,000, making up 50% of the project costs. There's no measured savings caps. They cannot, now these rebates cannot be combined, I'm sorry, the efficiency rebates cannot be combined with the electrification rebates. Efficiency rebates are better for the non-LMI households. Next, there is the 25D, or the Residential Clean Energy Tax Credit. The tax credits are available now, and they're available through 2034, and they're retroactive to 2022. IRS guidance is available to help guide you through the IRA's tax credits now. It provides 30% tax credit for geothermal heat pumps, solar panels, and battery storage. There's no cap on that 30%. And it covers purchase and installation. This is it's non-refundable, but it carries forward, the carry forward ability does apply. Next, there's 25C, and that's the Residential Energy Efficiency Tax Credit. Again, available now, and that's through 2032. And it provides a 30% tax credit for residential efficiency and electrification upgrades up to $3,200 per year. So you can get an annual credit for a heat pump and a heat pump water heater that would be capped at $2,000. You can also get an annual credit for other upgrades, such as upgrading your electrical panel, if it's installed in conjunction with a heat pump. Also, insulation of your home, getting doors and windows, and that is capped at $1,200 annually, and that covers the purchase and the installation costs. There's an annual credit limit that resets every year. So you can, one year you could use $2,000 towards your heat pump, and then the following year you can use another $2,000 towards your water heater heat pump. For 25C, everything but heat pumps is included in the $1,200 that resets every year. So that $1,200 can be a part of weatherization of your home, or part of your panel upgrade, or part of the windows and doors. And if you pair that with a heat pump or a heat pump water heater, you can claim up to $3,200 that year, $2,000 for the heat pump and $1,200 for the weatherization. But $3,200 is the most you can get in a single year for 25C. But remember, you can get each year it resets and you get another $2,000. Lastly, there's 30D and 25E, which are electric vehicle tax credits. 30D is for new electric vehicles. That's for people with an adjusted gross income of $150,000 or less for a single individual, or $225,000 or less for a head of household, or $300,000 for joint filers. The MSRP of the vehicle, there's a limit of $55,000 for sedans and $80,000 for vans, trucks, and sport utility vehicles. While 30D is tied to certain critical mineral final assembly requirements, those won't take effect until the IRS releases guidance, probably in March. So buy an electric vehicle now. 25E is used for used electric vehicles. Your adjusted gross income is $75,000 or less for a single individual, $112,500 for head of household, and less than $150,000 for joint filers. The MSRP of the vehicle is $25,000 or less. There's also a tax credit for electric vehicle charging facilities for rural and low-income communities, and that's 30% up to $1,000 for residential. Initial guidance from the Treasury Department is available and includes a list of qualified vehicles. Here's a recap of all the incentives that I've gone over with you today, so you can take a quick look. We have the electrification rebates, that's up to $14,000. There's $4.5 billion in that program. And then there's the energy efficiency rebates, up to $4,000 for low to moderate income households, and up to $8,000 for non-LMI households. And then you have the electrification efficiency tax credits, 30% of the cost, up to $3,200 per year, and that's uncapped. And then the solar storage tax credits under 25D, that's 30% uncapped, and then the EV tax credits. So if you want to learn more about the IRA incentives and electric appliances, download the full version of Rewiring America's Go Electric Guide for free, and check out our IRA calculator to see which incentives for your household qualifies for. And then just providing some guidance here on what is low to moderate income. It's going to be based on your area median income. So low income is generally less than 80% of your area median income. Moderate income is going to be between 80 and 150% of AMI. And then if your household is too high to qualify for the upfront discounts, you can still qualify for the tax credits. And then I will turn it over. Thank you, everybody.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Michael. That was great. I just want to remind folks to keep putting your questions in the chat. Please put them to everybody or to Deepa, or if you could, because some people have been direct messaging me and they're not getting to the right people. So please make sure you share them with the whole audience. And Renee, can you put the link to the resolution form that I shared earlier in the chat so that people can look at that and print that out at home? Because it kind of organizes, all the different opportunities there.
Will do.
So then let me now introduce you to Lisa Marshall. She is New Yorkers for Clean Power's Director of Advocacy and Organizing. Previously, Lisa was the Program Director for Heat Smart Tompkins, New York's first and most successful clean heating and cooling program. And prior to Heat Smart, Lisa worked as a community organizer with the climate organization Mothers Out Front. Lisa is one of the leaders of the Renewable Heat Now campaign, which advocates for building decarbonization, which, as we saw, is the largest source of greenhouse gases in New York today. Thank you for joining us today, Lisa, and I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks so much for organizing this. It's a delight to be here with the Climate Reality Project. I was into Al Gore way back when, before anybody else. So just really appreciate you guys and the way you're really throwing down here in New York State. So, and welcome to everybody. So as Paul said, I'm Lisa Marshall. I use she, her pronouns. I live up here in Chemung County, New York, which is on the traditional lands of the Susquehannock people. And I will go ahead and share my slides and talk about, so just to disambiguate, Michael shared the new IRA incentives, which are, except for the tax credits, not here yet. They're coming, but they're not here yet. And if you use his wonderful calculator, which is very cool, it actually isn't going to show you the incentives that are available to you right now in New York. And we've had incentives available for electrification in New York for a few years now. And that is because of the hard work of advocates, in particular, the Renewable Heat Now campaign, which is why I'm so proud to be such a part of Renewable Heat Now. Okay, I'll stop saying that and share my slides. Hopefully no one can see how many tabs are open on my computer. Does this show up okay? Yes?
It's good.
And the audio is good?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Okay, so in New York State, as you probably all know, we have a pretty great climate law, and that has caused us to look and break down where our emissions are coming from. And partly because of the work of New York State advocates, we really count methane or natural gas emissions more completely than they do in other states, because we look at all the leaked methane, not just the methane that is burned, but all the leaked methane from the fracking wells of Pennsylvania, all throughout the pipelines, through the compressors, and all the way to your house. And so we calculate methane on a 25-year time scale instead of a 100-year time scale, the climate impact. So when we look at the emissions from buildings, that drives them up far greater than the emissions from any other sector. And as you can see, the first images I'm showing you are from NYSERDA. I don't work for NYSERDA. I just copied their slides. So they are not responsible for what I'm saying here. I'm just using their great images. If anyone from NYSERDA is out there listening. Okay, so as you can see, we have this large 32% of our emissions coming from buildings, and we know it's actually bigger than that. And what most of that is the space heating, right? This big bar here. So, and hot water is pretty significant as well. So that's where what we need to figure out. So we have decided in New York that the pathway to reduce those emissions is very clear. It's energy efficiency and electrification of our buildings, and electrifying with air source or ground source heat pumps or connected thermal networks. So we have a great program in New York that launched a couple of years ago. It's called the New York State Clean Heat Program. And this was through a proceeding at the Public Service Commission called the Energy Efficiency Proceeding. And what that proceeding and at the Public Service Commission is a one-way policy is made, and it ends with an order to the utilities of what they are required to do to continue to operate in New York State. So the utilities were ordered to offer incentives for heat pumps enough so that we could reduce, we could save 4 TBTUs. It's I can't remember what that stands for at the moment. Thermal units, thousands of thermal units. Sorry, I do know that, but you know, when you speak to people, then your brain freezes. So the way that this money is being spent, this utility money, is in incentives to consumers and outreach to households by NYSERDA to teach people about these incentives. And we plan to reduce the cost of heat pumps also through this program by making heat pumps, by having a market transformation from conventional heating to heat pumps. And part of this is having qualified contractors. So if you call any Joe the contractor, they may or may not be a clean heat contractor. And if they're not a clean heat contractor, that means a few things. One, it means they can't get the incentives for your heat pumps. So they still might come out cheaper, but they can't get you the utility incentives. It also means that they are agreeing to certain protocols for putting in the best practices for the right kinds of heat pumps, the right kind of design, et cetera, for your house. To be approved for the heat pumps, they actually have to put in an application that shows the heating load of your house, the system that they're proposing, and it has to be approved by a third party before they can get that rebate paid back to them. And they also have to submit to quality assurance and quality control inspections on their work. So they're actually putting themselves out there in order to be part of this program. It may mean their upfront price is a little higher, but then that's made up for by the rebate. But you're also getting a high quality install, which is very, very important, in getting the right equipment sized correctly for your home. Okay, what equipment qualifies for under New York State Clean Heat? Air source heat pumps, ground source heat pumps, and heat pump water heaters. People often ask about air to water. We don't really have air to water heat pumps as a mainstream thing in New York. So we have air to air, like this mini split over here on the left. We have ground source heat pumps, which could either have a vertical or a horizontal bore field, like this is a horizontal one shown in this picture. And they can give you both heating, cooling, and hot water. And then the heat pump water heater is a standalone guy. It's like a conventional electric hot water heater with a little heat pump on top. It may or may not be the right kind of heater for your house, depending on whether you have where your water heater is located, whether you have enough ceiling clearance, and what the condition of your basement is, and whether you have a basement. But for a lot of people, that's a good option for heating your hot water. Okay. So here's sort of the overview of New York State electrification incentives with a focus on heat pumps. So the clean heat rebates, I can't tell you how much the rebate for you is, because it depends who your utility is, where you live in the state, depends on who's your gas utility. That's where you're getting your rebate from. And the different utilities have different structures. It also depends what equipment you're getting. So it's highly variable, and the utilities, to make it even more fun for everybody, have adjusted and changed their incentive structures since 2.5 years ago when this program launched, because, you know, why would you keep things the same? That's just too easy for everybody. Then last year, part of Renewable Heat Now's advocacy was to pass a new law, which would give you a $5,000 tax credit for a ground source or geothermal heat pump. So that is now New York State law. So if you get a geothermal heat pump this year, or you got one last year, you can get up to 25% New York State tax credit up to $5,000. Also in New York, we have a lot of programs for energy for low to moderate income households, and those didn't used to be able to be used for heat pumps, but now they are. The two main programs are called Assisted Home Performance, which is for moderate income households, 60 to 80% of median income, which I have a chart, which I'll show you what that is. So they would get up to $5,000 matching. So say the job cost $8,000, Assisted Home Performance would pay $4,000, and the homeowner would pay the matching $4,000. There's also Empower, which is really designed to cover the entire cost for weatherization and sometimes for heating. And right now there was last year, and again this year is going to be an extra $10,000. So Empower households can get $20,000 towards a heat pump. There are some limitations on that. For the most part, gas heating is excluded from that grant. It's usually for oil or propane, unless you have an extremely inefficient gas heater. We also have some terrific incentives for solar, including, again, a similar tax credit, a rebate that again depends on a few factors, but it averages for about 5% of the cost, and an EV rebate from $5,000 to $2,000. And we can share the links where you can read more about all of those things, but I can't go into too much into detail in this presentation. All right, I just added this because Lynn asked what the cutoffs were to give you an idea of the current household size and what median and low income is. So Empower is anybody below the 60% of state median income, and this is the household size. So for a single person, it's $32,748, but for a household size of 5, it's $73,056. Also, if any member of the household is on SNAP or some of the other, or has qualified, or if the household's qualified for HEAP, which is heating assistance, you automatically qualify for Empower. Then between 60 and 80 is Assisted Home Performance, and Assisted Home Performance and Empower. I'm going to go back to the previous slide here. No, I'm not, apparently. It doesn't want me to go back. It wants me to go forward. Now you're going to see all my tabs. This is terrible. Don't look. Okay, back to slideshow mode. Don't look at my tabs, guys. It's too scary. Okay, I'm going to scroll through here real quick. So these two programs are about to be combined into a single program that's going to be called Empower Plus. And Empower Plus will sort of have 3 income levels, and the incentives will be tagged to that income level. And I think what they're going to try to do is make those income levels make sense with the IRA benefits that are coming at the end of this year or the beginning of next year. So I think they're thinking ahead to try to make it all match up nicely. Okay, sorry, I know that's really confusing. So here are some quick examples. This is, sorry, this picture is blurry, but here is, these are actual examples of actual homes in my program that got heat pumps. So here's an old 1800s upstate New York farmhouse. It got insulation. It got a ducted air source heat pump system, quite a large one because this house has a big heating load. And the total project cost without rebates was $34,790. After the clean heat rebate, it dropped the cost by almost $10,000. And if this project was done this year, this project could take off an additional, probably additional $3,500, right, Michael, for off the taxes for the IRA tax credit, because it got both insulation done as well as a heat pump, and that totally replaced the previous fossil fuel system. So this is somebody who did not qualify for the income-based grants. Here's another one. This is a smaller home, much better insulated, much smaller heating load. Actually the same installer. So the upfront cost of this system was just about 19,000. The clean heat rebate was 4,200. This is in NYSEG utility territory. So the cost to the customer was about 15,000. Still probably a little bit more than what a gas system replacement would have cost. Oh, but actually this house, I don't think is on gas, it was on oil. So this person is gonna save so much money on their heating bill that this 15,000 will pay back pretty quickly. I'm pretty sure this was an oil house, not a gas one. If it was gas, the payback is not nearly as good, of course. Gas is still, even with the gas hikes, it's still on the cheap side compared to other heating fuels. All right, here's a whopper. This is a huge house that got a very high-end, very highly engineered ground source heat pump system. This was a house with radiators, so that's a difficult job. It costs a lot more than a house with forced air. They didn't have air conditioning before. They got air conditioning through this ground source heat pump system. And when you see this whopping $105,000, it's pretty stunning. This is quite a large house, quite a large system, but they're never going to have to replace that ground loop. So when the heating system, the heat pump itself dies in 25 or 30 years, they're never going to have to pay this much again. This is including the cost of drilling and digging up their yard to put the ground loop in. The annual savings on heating for this family was $5,000 because they had oil or propane previously. So even with this huge upfront cost, it made sense for them to go with the ground source heat pump system that is so incredibly inexpensive to operate and gave them added value of air conditioning, which they really wanted. So they got $46,000. I think this includes both the New York State clean heat incentive as well as the federal 30% tax credit. So here's some income qualified households. Here's an actual job for an assisted home performance customer. The system cost was about 16,500. The clean heat rebate was about 3,900. Then they got the $5,000 assisted home performance grant. So the cost to them was about $7,700, and that is similar to what a new gas system would cost. So really what the idea is to try to bring it down so that it's not going to cost these lower income customers any more than it would cost them to go with a conventional heating system. And here's an Empower household. These folks had very low income. They got insulation and air sealing completely for free, and a heat pump system, and a sump pump, and an electrical panel upgrade. And the total cost to them for this job was $1,200. And we see a lot of folks in mobile homes and other homes, older homes such as this up in upstate New York, who are so thrilled to have the opportunity to get these energy improvements through these great programs that we have here in New York. We should all be really, really proud of them. So I have links that I will share. We would definitely recommend starting to get with a qualified company to do an energy audit on your home to figure out where the air is leaking, where the insulation needs to improve. To find a qualified New York State clean heat contractor, you go to cleanheat.ny.gov. And to talk to someone who did the job that I did for many years, which is really to help connect customers with the right kind of contractors, what the incentives are in your area, what you qualify for, what your first step maybe should be, et cetera. You're going to want to get in touch with your regional clean energy hub. This is a new program that New York has that now serves every county in New York. These are folks that are funded by NYSERDA to hold your hand, answer your questions, and help you out. And I will share the link to the Clean Energy Hub. The programs are just getting started. So they're the people that you reach there may or may not be completely up on everything. So they literally were just hired in January and are just learning their jobs now. But this is a great program that's funded already for 4 or 5 years out. And they're going to be helping people connect with not only the existing programs, but also the IRA benefits once those the rest of them kick into gear. So that's it for me, and I will stop sharing. And thanks for your attention. If you're still awake, I'm here.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you very much, Lisa and Michael, for those wonderful presentations. The question came up, will we share those presentations? And the answer to that is yes, we will. So we'll put those up on the website and we'll send them to everyone who's in the meeting. So now we're going to move to the Q&A. And for that, I would like to introduce Faith Cummings, our co-chair of the New York City chapter, and Deepa Prasad, who is the advocacy co-director, along with Philip Kahn, and they're going to lead that session. So if you could take over from here, Faith.
Of course, thanks so much, Paul, and thank you to Lisa and Michael for so first, wanted to start off by asking you both. I think everything you shared made things very clear. Of course, you have a lot of questions, but it kind of distilled it and made it easier to digest. Just wondering.
Oh, I lost Faith. Did everybody lose Faith? Faith, you froze.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, you just froze for a minute.
Okay, my internet connection is unstable. The universe sending me some kind of sign, I don't know. But can you hear me? Yeah, thank you. So wanted to ask you both, what's being done at a federal and state level when it comes to making sure that everyone kind of has all this information and knows how to go about electrifying, everything in their daily lives?
Well, I can start if that's okay with you, Lisa. I think we are trying to work to sort of provide people with information on our IRA calculator, as well as some of the resources available on our website. And we are coordinating with federal agencies, Department of Energy, as well as NYSERDA, on sort of trying to make sure that we have the same messaging and that we're providing information to people who want to move forward with their electrification journeys.
Great, thank you. Lisa, do you have anything?
Can you reprise the question real quick?
Yeah, just wondering kind of what's been being done on a federal and state level in terms of kind of spreading the word about everything.
Oh, yes. Okay. I thought that was it, but I wasn't sure. So as I mentioned, the Clean Heat program actually has several $1 million for NYSERDA to do advertising. They're literally doing sort of direct advertising. You may have seen some of their Facebook ads. I do my Duolingo every morning and I see the NYSERDA ad pop up on Duolingo. So they are putting ads in market on Spotify, on radio, et cetera. And that part of that funding goes to people who had my old job or the Clean Energy Hub jobs that are helping to sort of do direct outreach to come to your church basement, your town hall, your Rotary Club to give talks. My organization also, I will put in a pitch for that. We give a talk called Green the Grid and Electrify Everything. I'm available to come to any part of New York State, either virtually or in person, to give that talk. And you can do that for free by signing up on New Yorkers for Clean Power's website. I went all the way from my house in Chemung County to the South Fork of Long Island a few weeks ago to give a talk to the Southampton group. So it's causing me to leave my little COVID safe bunker and go and actually be with people again, which is both delightful and terrifying. So yes, please ask us. We would love to come to your school, to your church, to your synagogue, to your sewing club and talk about electrification because it's so sexy and fun. So there's a lot of different ways that we're getting the word out. I will say something about also getting the word out. We talk to legislators a lot and they say you need to do more to get the word out because the opposition that's trying to stop all this from happening is actively messaging. The problem is they have a lot more money than we do. So we are getting the word out and we have been getting the word out and we will continue to get the word out, but we don't have $10 million a year to get the word out. We have a lot less than that. So we're doing our best, but the best way to get the word out, all the years I did the Heat Smart program, we surveyed people who were involved, and no matter how much we spent on marketing, the number one way people found out about us was word of mouth. So, and also, guess what? Hearing from your neighbor, your friend, your family member that they got a heat pump and they got these rebates and they are so happy with it is thousands of times more effective than seeing an ad on TV or on the radio. So please talk to your friends. If you have a heat pump, have them over on a hot day so they can enjoy the air conditioning. And that is actually how the really authentic word gets out about the benefits of electrification, because word of mouth is, there's nothing that replaces it. Nothing. So we need all of you to talk to your friends and show them this webinar and, visit a building with heat pumps and get excited, get pumped, as we like to say, or amped. Probably Michael would say get amped.
Thank you so much, Lisa. All great ideas. And I know that we'll all be sure to be spreading the word. We had a question from Joanne. She was asking about the calculator and the guide and wondering how often they're updated and how people will know that they are getting up.
Yeah, I think the IRA calculator is certainly being, we are consistently updating it based on guidance. I think there is a lot of sort of in development on implementation, but for all intents and purposes, the facts that are in there, the numbers that are in there are accurate and updated.
Great, thank you, Michael. And I'll just ask one more question. I think you all covered everything about, low income versus moderate income. So that was very helpful. But she was also wondering if there were any incentives based on age, based on being, 65 or older, and based on, disabilities. Is there anything you can share or anything that's kind of being done in those areas as well?
Well, there's certain things you automatically qualify for, like Empower if you're on what's it called, SSI, which is, I think, the Supplementary Assistance Program for Disability. But other than that, no, there isn't anything that is age specific that I know of, unfortunately. But I do find that the income limits definitely tend to benefit people on fixed income for sure, because they often don't take into account your assets, just your monthly income.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. So I'm going to pass it over to Deepa, who will ask some more questions that have been shared in the chat. I'm with her.
Thanks, Faith. So we have quite a few questions. So I'm going to ask a couple about electric vehicles, actually. So one is, does the federal electric vehicle tax credit exclude any makes or models?
Michael.
The information that I have regarding is basically kind of what I shared as far as the limits on the MSRP for the vehicle, how much it can cost based on the type of vehicle it is. and whether it is a new or a used vehicle. So depending upon the model of the vehicle, that it will change the number, and then depending upon whether it's a new or used vehicle.
Right, but also it excludes most EVs because it has this requirement that it's about the components being made in the USA. So most EVs actually do not currently qualify for the federal tax credit. But that interesting thing is the price of EVs are just coming down. So that's kind of exciting. That's the whole point of these incentives, is to bring the prices down anyway. That's a good thing.
The best thing to do is to actually reach out to your to the dealer of the model you're looking for, and they'll know the up-to-date information. And just a follow-up question.
Sorry,
to
Paul, I
Michael.
just have to say that actually is not the best thing to do. Usually the dealers don't know and they won't tell you, and they try to sell you a gas car. We have bought many EVs and that has almost always been our experience. The dealers
Okay, well,
actually don't even know
sorry,
what
that's my
credits are
personal
available.
experience. And
So I just want
that's
to say you should do your research.
yeah.
And
Okay,
then
so that's what I did.
her.
Can I finish my statement, please?
Yeah, sorry.
That's what I'm getting used to it. That's what I did, and it worked. But there's also what I wanted to also add is that in one of those resources called the New York Drive from NYSERDA has a list of the incentives currently for the New York incentives, and it also includes the US ones. So that's also another good resource. And that is in the that link is in the chat. I can re-add it now if to make it more available.
Great, thanks, Paul. So another question on electric vehicles. Question is, I understand that the federal tax credit for electric vehicles will become rebates in 2024. So lower income individuals who don't pay federal taxes will be able to get the rebates. Is that correct?
I do know that the credits will be transferable to dealers starting in 2024. So that will essentially convert them into an upfront discount as opposed to a tax credit.
Great. Right. So I think that's all of the questions we have on electric vehicles so far. So I'll switch over to the other questions. So someone asks, do you have any examples of the range of upfront costs for acquiring smart alternative energy installations?
I can, do you mean heat pumps, or when you say smart alternative energy installations, or I mean, I could just speak to heat pumps that maybe or other things you might be referring to, but basically for a single family house, for air source heat pumps, generally speaking, the upfront cost before incentives ranges about, I'd say the very low end is like 15,000 and the very high end is, you know, upwards of 60, 70,000, depending on the size of the house and the heat load. And that's before the incentive. So it's quite a range. I will just say one more time that you can sometimes get a cheaper heat pump from just Joe the plumber, which may be a perfectly good heat pump for your house, and it may be a perfectly qualified install, but it also might not be, and you have no one checking. So I'm not saying don't do that, but I am saying if you're not really savvy about what kinds of heat pumps there are and what your climate zone requires and what a good install looks like, you're taking a risk doing that by not going through clean heat. Because so I don't tell people not to do that, because a lot of people are capable of sort of completely being on top of that themselves. And I know some very good kind of Joe the heat pump installers, but you know, and they can't really do clean heat because clean heat requires a lot of paperwork. If you don't have any employees, you sort of have a choice. Like, are you going to install heat pumps or are you going to do paperwork, right? If you're just one guy in a truck. So there's some great guys in a truck and gals in a truck out there who do heat pumps, but unless you feel like you can independently verify if they're installing the right kind of heat pumps for you, then you might not want to go that route. Does that make sense? And
Yeah.
you know, some of them are pretty affordable, but I've seen people say, oh, well, the people you referred me to quoted this, but I got a heat pump from this guy and here's that price. And I'm like, yeah, but that heat pump isn't good for our cold climate. And it's not going to keep you warm. So I don't think you're going to be very happy. So I don't say that because if they've already bought it, then what am I going to say? But you know, if they haven't bought it yet, though, I do say something about it.
Well, just following up on that, another question was, how can people get a list of clean heat contractors in their area? Are they listed somewhere, Heat Smart Capital or any other place like that?
So I will send you to the Clean Heat website and you can put in your address and what kind of thing you're looking for. It is not a perfect website. It does have a lot more installers listed on it than that, you know, because a lot of it's people just signed up who aren't really installers. So you have to be, you can either go to your Clean Energy Hub and talk to them directly, or you can go to nys.cleanheat or Clean Heat. I'll put the link in the chat.
Great, thank you.
And
It's a great place to start.
And then I'll just mention on the question on some of the other upgrades. You know, I'll just mention that, you know, 25C, the tax credit that is available now, it basically provides $2,000. It's a 30% cap tax credit that provides $2,000 for heat pumps, and then it provides up to $1,200 in other upgrades. Those other upgrades would be insulation. If you want to, you know, do an insulation upgrade to your home, it includes doors. If you want to do energy efficient doors, it includes windows, energy efficient windows. For the doors, it's a $500 annual credit. For the windows, it's a $600 annual credit. If you wanted to upgrade your electrical panel, that would be a $600 annual credit that you could get. And if you wanted to have an energy audit done of your home, you can get $150 towards that energy audit. So those are some other upgrades that are included in the 25C tax credit.
Okay, I just need to add that in New York State, everyone qualifies for a free energy audit. So you don't have to pay for that. It's always free. And if you're low income, you can get a free one, I think, every 3 years, something like that. I think if you're not low income, it's like every 5 years or something like that. And I'll put the link, I put the link to find somebody to do an energy audit. I'll put that down here again. You do have to be a little careful with an energy audit because it is a salesperson who's doing your audit. They are also going to try to sell you things. That makes the audit worthwhile for their company to do. They get reimbursed for the audit from NYSERDA, but they also, of course, are driving out to your house and spending a good amount of time if they're doing a good energy audit. So you should know they are in sales. That is their profession. But they should come and you should ask them specifically, are they going to do a blower door test? Are they going to take an infrared camera picture of your house to see where the air leakage is? Ask them to come on a very cold day or a very hot day, or to schedule during, you know, either hot summer or cold, so that infrared camera actually can take a meaningful picture. It works best in the winter because then you can really see where the heat is coming out. A lot of times they'll try to get away with doing less than a full audit. So you might want to like be an informed customer and kind of ask them, what will they be doing? Will they have an infrared camera? Will they be doing a blower door test, etc.? The exception is if you have asbestos insulation in your attic, they can't do a blower door test because they don't want to be sucking asbestos through your house with their big fan.
Okay, great. we have a question about single family homes versus townhouses. So someone has a neighbor moving from a single family home to a townhouse in a community with semi-connected units, and they need to replace their gas furnace. And the person asking the question is trying to help them convert to an air source heat pump. Are the rebates applicable to somebody moving into a townhouse?
Do you mean they're a renter, or do you mean it's just a townhouse that they're buying?
It's not specified in the question.
Okay. I will talk about renters. Renters are the big problem with how we're going to electrify, because renters and landlords have to work together in order to access incentives. And we all know that renters and landlords are not getting along that great these days. So it's a little complicated, and so there's incentives that are available, but you have to have, everybody in the building sort of on board, especially the landlord. There's further complications in New York. Most renters are paying their own electric, but the landlord is paying for the heat. Well, if you electrify the heat, then your renter's electric bill is going to go up. That's not something most renters are really looking to get on board with. For some reason, I don't know, higher energy bills. So there's a lot to be unpacked in the multifamily rental space when it comes to electrify everything. The good news is there's a lot of smart people working on it, and there's some pilot studies happening now. There's some, focus groups and community work. There's some places like Ithaca where they're really having a multi-level community conversation about how we're going to do all our buildings. So we don't have all the answers, and anybody who says that they do is not telling you the truth. The answers are still being worked on. But this is a transition, and any mother who's given birth knows transition is the hardest part, right? Doesn't come without pain. So this is the place we find ourselves in, and we're all, it's important for us to sort of stay focused and breathe and work together and talk and listen, and we will figure these things out together as a state and as a country. But it is complex. The simplest version is a person owns their own house and wants to do something to it. That's very easy, but it does get very complicated in multi-ownership situations. I've often had, duplexes with renters. We pretend this is a world where everyone is using one kind of heat, but upstate everyone has about 3 or 4 different kinds of heat. So it's complicated, but it doesn't mean we can't do it. We can do hard things.
And I'll just mention that renters may be specifically interested in the rebates for portable appliances like window unit heat pumps and inductive cooktops. And the same thing when it comes to the credits. Renters may be specifically interested in the 25C credit for portable window unit heat pumps once the relevant efficiency standards are released, which is hopefully by 2024.
Great. So the person who asked the question about the townhouse is actually clarified that it is an owner, not a renter. So in light of that, are these rebates applicable to a townhouse owner? And I think the answer is yes.
Okay. Absolutely, definitely.
Okay, great. Let's see. Another question we have here is with regards to nonprofits or religious organizations. So do nonprofits or religious organizations qualify for the electrification incentives under the Inflation Reduction Act and the New York State incentives?
Well, some of them, yes, some of them, no. Obviously, if you are not, if you're tax exempt, then you can't get a tax credit. That's how that works. But some of the rebates didn't used to be available to churches and nonprofits, and now I believe that they are. I'm pretty sure clean heat is definitely. I'm not sure, Michael, do you want to take that for the IRA incentives?
Yeah, I think, like you said, Lisa, certainly with the credits, you have to have a tax credit in order to get those. And so not-for-profits wouldn't be paying taxes. And then I think the rebates for the most part are for LMI households. So that's what they are targeted for.
Great. So we have a question here. Is there money in the IRA for grid upgrades to connect distributed renewable energy resources?
I know that there is money in the IRA for the purposes of upgrading supply, renewable green energy supply. And I know that there are some things related to rooftop solar and things of that nature. I don't have that information off the top of my head. I was mostly focused on the demand side.
Sure. Okay. Are tax credits for electrical panels applicable for hot water heat pumps?
So do you mean heat pump water heater? Is that what we're talking about for heating your home hot water?
I don't know. That wasn't clear in the question. Maybe the person who asked the question can chime in the chat.
I can. So there are utility clean heat rebates for hot water heaters. And here's some good news. You have to go through a New York State clean heat contractor to get the rebates for heat pumps, but not so for the hot water heater. You can actually apply for it yourself. So you can buy a hot water heater at Lowe's and put it in and get that rebate yourself. Or you can get Lowe's to put it in for you and get it for yourself, or you can get Joe the plumber to put it in for you and get that rebate yourself. There's also a tax credit for hot water heaters that is in effect now. Last year it was $300, and I don't know what it is. I think it's going to go up, right, Michael?
Yeah, for the IRA 25C tax credit, there's up to $600 for electrical panel upgrades if they are installed in conjunction with and enable a heat pump water heater.
Okay, but I thought there was a standalone incentive just for hot water heaters, right? I think there is.
Yeah, there's a federal tax credit. I got $300 last year, so I'm
Yeah,
confirming
last year
that.
was 300, but I think it's gone up. Anyway, last year, before the IRA, it was 300 for a water heater and the same 300 for an air source heat pump. They treated both things as basically an efficient appliance and gave you that tax credit. But I believe that whole structure is different now. And better, more money for you.
Yeah, I'm interested in getting a new water heater, so I'm going to look into that for myself.
Yeah, one thing I'll just say is that unlike solar, most people don't think about their water heater or their heater really until it's almost dead. So the thing to do, and what Paul has very cleverly had you do with filling out that thing, is to sort of make a plan. Like, how old is your hot water heater? If it's more than 10 years old, you should start to be prepared, because the worst thing is to have that hot water heater break and then have to panic and get whatever is available that day, right? And the same thing with your heat. So, how old is your heater? Have an HVAC person come and take a look, get a good idea of how much life it has left in it, and then sort of make a household plan. Nobody is advocating that you take a perfectly functional piece of equipment out of your house and throw it in the landfill, right? What we're advocating for is that as our old equipment ages out, as our households plan for the future, we make a smart plan so that we don't get caught out and we get the equipment that we really want and we get to use all the incentives to help us get that equipment. So, you know, sometimes people feel really terrible and like, I can't do this right now. Of course, neither can I. Not everybody can, right? What we're trying to do is just make a sensible heating plan as part of our whole, like, what does this house or building need in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years? And, you know, what am I going to get at that point? And who's out there who can help me so that I can make the best decision when that's the right time to do that.
I think that's great advice. I think people sometimes get really overwhelmed with wanting to change everything out in their homes, and realizing that they just simply can't do that. So that's a really good piece of advice.
You can't, and you shouldn't. It's all about sequencing, as my husband would say. But unless you're completely doing a whole home renovation, ripping out everything down to the studs, most people don't ever do that, right? Unless you're doing that, what you're trying to just think of is what makes sense for you, and what makes sense for example, I still have a gas stove. I now have a 2-burner induction cooktop. My kids are out of the house, so mostly I can cook on an induction cooktop. And when we renovate our kitchen, at that point, I'll get a permanent induction cooktop. But meanwhile, it's just me and my husband. I can make soup and pasta easily on the induction burner. And when it's Thanksgiving, I still have the ginormous gas stove that holds a huge turkey. And someday that will be gone at the end of its life. Again, we don't take perfectly good equipment and throw it away. No one would want that. That's not sustainable. There's an embodied energy in all of the things, the appliances in our homes, and that's valuable.
Right. Okay, so I'm going to move on to a few more questions. So there's a question here about directing owners to finance the net cost after incentives. So how would you direct owners to finance the net cost of a project after incentives?
I can take that. So if you are low income, there are low income loans through Green Jobs, Green New York lending program, which you can find out about sometimes through your installer, or sometimes you can just look on NYSERDA's website. If you are a so-called market rate customer or higher income customer, you could still use that program, but it's probably not the best interest rate that you can get. You can probably get a better interest rate either through the installer themselves or through your credit union. For example, in Ithaca, the Alternatives Credit Union has a 4.5% 15-year energy efficiency loan. And so that's a good way. There's also actually some like national credit unions that are just for energy efficiency upgrades, such as heat pumps, et cetera. So I definitely recommend looking into those. Just, like any kind of lending, check the fine print. Make sure that you're not borrowing money at a bad situation. But there are quite a few different ways to do financing that are available in New York. And that Green Jobs, Green New York loan is really great for income qualified households. I think it's like 3.25% or 3.5% or something like that.
Great. So sorry, I'm just trying to sift through the questions here. So there was a question I asked earlier about, goodness, I can't find it, about hot water heat pumps. So I think we were seeking some clarification on the question. So the person actually did clarify. So they're asking about the hot water heat pump. Does that allow you to get a credit on replacing the electrical panel? So that has restrictions, and I wonder if the water heater qualifies for the panel reworking.
Yeah, I think, and I thought maybe I'm not answering the question correctly, but I think I'm saying is that you can get $600 for an electrical panel upgrade if that panel upgrade is installed in conjunction with and will enable the heat pump water heater. So you can get the $600 tax credit towards the electrical panel upgrade if it's in conjunction with the heat pump water heater.
Okay, I think that answers the question.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, I don't know, Faith, did you see any other questions in the chat that I may have missed?
Someone did just ask about credit unions financing multifamily buildings or just single family. Lisa, not sure if you have any info on that.
Great question. I don't know about credit unions and multifamily buildings. I would definitely talk to your credit union and find out. And the same with Green Jobs, Green New York. I think there are special loan categories for multifamily buildings. In my program, I dealt much more with 1 to 4 families, so I have less experience in that area, unfortunately. But it's definitely, there's definitely categories. There's incentive categories for all the big buildings. They're more complicated, but usually a large building contemplating a large upgrade will be working with staff that really understands how to manage this kind of thing. And what you would want to do is connect with somebody at NYSERDA, because there's all different, depending on this building size, et cetera, there's different programs that you might want to look at.
Okay, great, thank
Oh,
you.
thanks, Andrew. Green Jobs, Green New York is only for 1 to 4 family, so that's very helpful.
Oh, I think there is one other question that I missed. There was a question about the retroactivity of credits and rebates to things that were done in 2021.
So 25C is available for this year, and 25D is available to 2022. So 25D provides a 30% tax credit for solar panels, battery storage, geothermal heat pumps, solar water heating, fuel cells, and property wind energy installations. So that's retroactive to 2022. 25C is not retroactive to 2022. That's from January of 2023 forward.
Okay, so
Yeah,
not 2021.
No, well, there was a 25D before, it's just been expanded. So people who did 2021 ground source heat pumps or solar were eligible for a tax credit, but the air source heat pumps were not ever eligible for anything except an Energy Star $300 tax credit until January 1st of this year. In fact, one of those examples I showed you, my friend Todd actually, his was scheduled for late December, and then I was like, why don't you call the installer and see if they can put it in the first week of January, and that'll get you an extra $2,000. So they did actually move it just for you, Michael, so they could get 25C. Because that was, they would have gotten $300 instead. They got $2,000 by waiting a week. So that was worth it to them.
I think we do have another question here. Which agency will manage the HEEHR rebates, state, federal, or utilities? Also, are these rebates particularly for LMI going to replace utility rebates, or can they be combined?
So rebate programs are administered by the state energy offices. So those high efficiency electric home rebate programs will ultimately be administered through NYSERDA.
Well, also NYSERDA, because we have clean heat in New York, right? So NYSERDA is there. All the state energy agencies, including NYSERDA, are working on their proposals, to the federal government for how this is going to be administered. That's why we can't get the money yet, right? Because it all has to be figured out. That's what they're very busily doing over there at NYSERDA. And if you talk to them about it, they might not get back to you because they're extremely busy trying to figure out how this is all going to work because, you know, we were very lucky in New York. We've been very proactive. You know, we've been doing this. Other states don't have all these benefits that I talked about, right? This is very special in New York. So what we have to figure out how to do is to sort of, as painlessly as possible, merge the great new incentives that are coming down the pike with the IRA with the existing incentives in a way that will not be a logistical nightmare. So because our heat pump incentives are through our utilities now. So, and that will, you know, that program is not over. So we have to sort of figure that out. And NYSERDA is working very hard to work on that. In fact, if you want to get super nerdy and help NYSERDA, we're having a meeting with some experts on March 16th with New Yorkers for Clean Power to make comments on the new Efficiency New York process, which is sort of like the check-in, like, how is this all going? What could we be doing better? You know, they're actively soliciting input into this process. So if you're a person who's thought about this a lot or has experienced it, or if you have thoughts about how we should be doing it better, you know, there's a comment period open now for New Efficiency New York, and we're actively trying to get people involved in making those comments and helping to create better policy that really works well for all of us and the contractors that are supposed to be serving us, and make the utilities do and NYSERDA do it the best way possible, which, you know, they are trying to do. It's just, stuff's hard.
Very
And I'll
Go
just respond to some comments in the chat. The rebates would be administered through NYSERDA after what Lisa discussed and once they've gone through that process. But the tax credits are administered through the IRS. And so that is a different agency.
Yes, and Michael and I should always start every talk with, we are not tax experts and you should consult your tax expert before taking our word for any tax credit. Because that, you know, taxes are not my department.
I think we're almost out of time. I think I can ask one more question and then I'll hand it over to Paul to close us out. But so just last question was regarding whether there's a place for personal testimonials on the value of energy audits, air source heat pumps, ground source heat pumps, insulation, solar, et cetera. The person who asked the question thinks that more of those stories need to get out there.
I couldn't agree more. That's the best way to do it, is through storytelling. I have on my website some nice case studies I can link to, my old website, the Heat Smart Tompkins website. NYSERDA is trying to learn from all of us good organizers and is actually trying to collect stories and tell those stories. Telling these stories is really the most compelling thing because it makes it very real. It also is hard. You have to collect people's information. You have to get them to sign a release saying it's okay to tell their story. So yeah, we could use help telling these good stories because the stories are out there, but the contractors are too busy to tell them and the homeowners don't always want to tell them. So I couldn't agree more. I think the stories are the best way to take this from some like scary policy things where we're trying to, New York State's trying to tell everybody what to do, to actual like real first person. I had this experience, you know, I could tell stories all night long, people whose asthma went away and they didn't have to use their inhaler after they got a heat pump. Like I just have a lot of great personal stories, but yes, keep telling the stories and help us tell them, because that is actually, you know, that's how we're gonna make this energy transition real for folks.
Thank you. Thank you both for your presentations and for answering all these questions. And thank you to everyone for your participation. I'm going to hand it back over to Paul to close us out.
Okay, well, thank you, Deepa. this page, I just want to come back to this page that we had up earlier, because this is the way to pick up on what Lisa was saying. This is how we write our stories, right? So I think she made a really great point about how to prioritize for yourself, what you can do to electrify and to make to write your story of electrification and cleaning your personal, carbon footprint, as awful a term that is. And so this is a good framework for that. All of these actions have incentives from federal and state government things, and some of them are free. And we didn't touch on a couple. I just want to highlight. One is signing up for community solar. So if you don't have, like I don't, I live in a brownstone in New York City. I don't have a place to put a solar panel. So, but I did sign up for community solar. And so my electricity that I'm using there is actually panels in the Bronx providing my electricity. So, and I also get a 10% discount, but it's usually 5 to 10% discount on your bill. So you save money by doing this. So the only reason why I raised that particular one is because everyone here can do that. It doesn't, there's no barrier from at least starting the story writing this year. And unless you're not paying for your electricity, and God bless if you are, because you're you're in a great place. And I also highlight one that's very relevant for those of us in the city. It's sell your car and take public transport. You'll actually not spend money, you'll save money. So anyway, those are just a couple of the ones I wanted to highlight here. And before we finish, I also wanted to highlight that there's some great people out there that can help you with this. I'm putting in a pitch for Lisa Marshall's New Yorkers for Clean Power. They have what's called energy advisors. And if you look on their website, I actually have used one of them to help me, and they're great. That you can talk through your personal issues with them, and they'll help you get to a good solution. So I really, one of them actually is a climate reality project leader, and the other one is a great guy as well. So I encourage anyone to look those guys up. And with that, I just want to thank both Michael and Lisa for this wonderful evening of fun and entertainment for us energy geeks. We all want to, I think we now have the wherewithal, the federal and the state policy framework for us to actually, start to be able to make this transition and write the story that's so important. And so I want to thank you both for all the information you gave us. And yeah, and that's it. And thanks everyone for showing up and spending your evening with us. All of this recording will be on our website, and so will the presentations. So if Michael and Lisa, you could send me your presentations, that'd be super. All right, well, thanks everyone. Have a great evening, and we'll see you in a month on March 28th. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, everybody. What a great meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
There's